The Great British Sunday Roast, a cultural essay by Michael Lieber. Read by James Brown. I am compelled to put pen to paper, to release such compliments that I bear within my being for one of the finest institutions we have here in England. I speak, of course, of the Great Sunday Roast. In this brief odish passage, I intend to praise this grand spectacle, without, and prepare yourself now, without even a drop of satire or hiding humour, I shall try my best. I am aware that to do so is not in keeping with neither my temperament nor 21st century literature, or 21st century anything for that matter. I am infected by the age. It has become common practice to scoff and snigger and ruthlessly satirize every notion of an honest sentiment. But witness me now, with shield and sword in all my blueness. A brave knight am I. I adore my Sunday roast. I adore it for a whole host of reasons. In an average working week, it is perfectly positioned in mid-Sunday, and beats the horrid approaching rise of a Monday morning with a full stomach and just a whisper of Christmas warmth every week of the year. A few slices of roasted beef bathed in rich gravy, potatoes, carrots, peas, cauliflower and broccoli, with the saucy side options of mint, apple, horseradish and cranberry. And for due diligence, if needed, a fancier fare, then by all means add pigs in blankets and stuffing and perhaps a spot of crackling. This is the Sunday roast in all its glory. But in the same breath, I happily state it is a dish not afraid of outsiders, for it is secure and confident in its position. Chicken, lamb, pies, even brown sauce, red sauce, buttered biscuits, bacon, rubble disguised as meat. All are welcome on the plate. A Sunday roast will hold out its arms and greet those weary travellers in a jolly embrace, as a friend. Come in and know me better, man. And I will gesture to the Welsh for this wild flair, for they lead the charge in this regard. And behold, the Sunday roast with a twist was born. And for an added side note, it must be said, the best roast beef is, of course, Welsh beef. But admittedly, I must confess, the timing of a Sunday roast is not unique. There are many countries and cultures that consume a big meal on Sundays. But I stand astride with frantic limbs, dear reader, indeed at Speaker's Corner, and boom my bass baritone, the Great British Sunday Roast beats them all, for it transports all that savour its flavours to that English Eden. A simple, warm, Cotswoldian pleasure, that innocent, dewy countryside realm of Hardy, Dickens and Austen, lay-leafed and comforted. The friendly shade of a weeping willow in golden green summer as you rest by the riverbank. I fear I may be projecting by this point. So I will put forth a more universal crown, one of the defining features that is famed the world over. Hear the drum roll. The spotlight descends. Pull back the velvet curtain. Here it is, in all its puffy appeal. The Yorkshire pudding. And if you have opened your doors to the world, you will know that any foreigner that tries a Sunday roast for the first time, the Yorkshire pudding is undoubtedly the highlight. And with good cause, for it is the only element of a Sunday roast that has the power and volition to stand on its own as a main meal. In its first incarnation, it was a larger deity and went by the name of dripping pudding. It was first debuted in Sir Alexander Casey's cookbook, The Whole Duty of a Woman, in 1737, and then later improved and renamed by Hannah Glass's cookbook, The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy, in 1747. The Yorkshire pudding's fruitful history even predates the Sunday roast itself by a good 80 years or so, and fittingly, like the evolution of our fair kingdom, it shrank from its immense size to a more manageable structure, but regained its reputation and vigour. It joins the Sunday roast, a bona fide celebrity. The carrots ask for its autograph, the peas swoon and faint, and the roast potatoes act casual and pretend not to care, but their quick side glances give them away every time. And with all these unions in play, The Sunday roast is now internationally known. As I understand it, there was even a brief vogue in American history, in cities admittedly, where the Sunday roast was quite popular, due to the influence of Victorian Irish immigrants, but has since fallen from Yankee tables. Well, to any such foreign plates, I will of course sing its graces. Welcome the Sunday roast into your homes once again, and feel not a jot of regret. The Scottish, the Irish, and the Welsh are all part of the tradition naturally. I wonder if small numbers sit down to a Sunday roast in Australia. Surely they must, with the amount of British boffins gliding themselves over there on a daily basis. Influence, tradition, and indeed repetition are very powerful things after all. And since the aforementioned retraction of the British Empire, it brings me quiet pleasure to think that in past Britannia lands, such as Canada, India, and Africa, in some deep dark corner of their society, perhaps the sound of horseradish sauce being spoon-clinked onto the side of a plate can still be heard to this day. They certainly do in the far-off British territory of the Falkland Islands. But as I understand it, they see the consumption of a Sunday roast as purely medicinal. They scoff down the gravied beef in order to ward off the fear that they may wake up one morning and find themselves Argentinian. A terrifying prospect, I'm sure you will agree. And now let me think, yes, why not? Let us roll out the red carpet once more for another key player, Madame Gravy, a merit badge well deserved. The gravy is the blanket of community that brings all together as one. But just like the Yorkshire pudding, gravy has a history of its own, and not all good. Let us never forget the tragic tale of Molly Maru, the Scottish hotel owner credited for creating the best gravy that had ever been tasted. People would travel hundreds of miles to her small village of Pittenweem, whereupon they would board her lodgings and savour her famous roast dinner with that astonishing gravy. Soon enough, word quickly spread across the country, and before Molly Maru knew it, there were lines of people queuing outside her humble hotel every day of the week. At first she was delighted, and welcomed as many in as she could. But the pressure of cooking that many roast dinners became impossible, and she resorted to simply handing out polystyrene cups of her gravy at £2 each. But this only seemed to draw even bigger crowds. It became all too much for Molly Maru, and in an effort to unentice the hordes of people, she could think of nothing else but to raise the price per cup. But this in turn only created buzz, intrigue, a media storm. News stations turned up, helicopters hovered outside. All roads that led to Pittenweem were traffic jammed all the way to Belay Bridge and back again, as Molly Maru desperately raised her prices again and again and again. At its peak, a Norwegian prince bought a medium-sized barrel of her best gravy for the hefty sum of 13 million kroner, close to 1 million British pounds. And in another account, a gravy-addicted mother drowned her newborn in the Pittenweem harbour to sell its tiny clothes for just a thimble of that ambrosia gravy. Before long, the crowds were no longer content with merely tasting the gravy. They wanted to know how it was made. What ingredients did it possess that made it so impossibly delicious? And Molly Maru, on numerous occasions, could be seen shouting from an open window to the packed gatherings below. "Never! It's a family secret, and she'll never leave my lips. Now away, all of you, be gone! You're driving me mad!" And alas, after months of disturbed sleep, gathered faces tapping at her windows, begging for more, pleading to know, Molly Maru finally rang her bell and ran out onto the crowded street in only her nightie and lightly flung herself off the Pittenweem pier and landed fatally onto the hard deck of a fishing boat, killing her instantly. After this awful tragedy, the peaceful town of Pittenweem was never the same again, and indeed the world cried a single tear that day, not just for poor Molly Maru, but for the recipe that was now lost forever. And so, to commemorate her memory, the gravy boat was invented and graces our tables every Sunday. It stands as a reminder that we may indulge ourselves in good gravy, but it is never the best gravy. Now, let us conclude with the last note left to play. It is impossible to write in any great detail about the Great British Sunday Roast without at least gesturing towards the religious ties that brought about its creation. Christianity is its mother, and the Sunday church service its heart. But alas, a heart that ticks but once a year. I am aware of the strength of Christian communities, but for many in the United Kingdom, Sunday is no longer a day of piety. It still remains a day of rest, but this does not include a lengthy church service. And I will also quickly add that I have no intention of qualifying whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. It is simply self-evident. I consult the poll-taker in this matter. However, the Sunday roast, in my opinion, has taken on a new and glorious responsibility. It plays a pivotal role in our national identity. It stands with many other notable traditions, the full English breakfast, acknowledging the weather, tea and biscuits, and the dream of a comfy retirement in the countryside. It is in good company. Company that we all agree upon, for the most part. But who gets the prize, I wonder? Who is responsible for making the first plate? Who gets the credit? Well, it is the Irish, and fully deserved. They invented its template. The roast beef, the potatoes, and the farm-reared vegetables. I shake your proud hand, my mighty green cousins. But as the rolling rock will roll, the story had only just begun. England added their best, and indeed the Welsh and the Scottish added their best. It is a dish that we all share and all helped create and recreate every Sunday of the year. May it grace our tables forever. It is our united pleasure, our kingdom's dish. Bow, bow, wait for applause. No applause. Curtain closes, off to the pub.